Thank you for staying with us. It is still iBrand Daybreak. The recently approved student loan scheme is to commence in the next academic year, which is expected to, of course, be in September of 2023. This was disclosed at the resumed hearing of the House of Representatives Ad Hoc Committee on Students' Loan Fund and Access to Higher Education in Nigeria, holding in Abuja. The committee is also proposing an increase of 3% for students' loan as against the initial 1%. The public hearing was to ascertain the level of progress made so far by a presidential committee put together to remove all legal matters hindering access to the loan by Nigerian students. Chairman of the committee, Honorable Tesia Ubo, proposed an upward review from 1% to 3% from revenue generated annually from the federal account. And of course, the stories around this whole student loan continue to unfold, and definitely we are bringing you all of it. But to have this conversation with us this morning, we're looking at the Student Loan Act and how it is going to be implemented. Of course, a lot of people have had issues around it, for people sharing their displeasure and other people for it, but we're going to be looking at it this morning, of course, with our analyst. First of all, I'd like to get your reaction. I know about the ad hoc committee and the meeting that they had in Abuja last week. Actually, I was being very positive when I heard about that meeting. I was hoping that maybe these people would be able to eventually tell us something that is feasible, something that is doable. Unfortunately, this is what we have on our hands: an upward review from 1% to 3%. Looking at it, I'm not an economist, but of course, looking at the situation economically that we find ourselves in as a country and how we've been doing things in the past, very lackadaisical and not paying attention to details, do you still think that this student loan scheme is something that is doable in Nigeria?
I mean, when it comes to durability, we know what durability means in this country. It could be shoddy, it could be shambolic. But if the ruling elite feels that this is what they have to do, regardless of whether it makes any sense or not, they can always do it. But the question is if it actually solves anything. There are glaring problems in the education sector. One is affordability, the other is access. And then you also have a question of very poor quality of infrastructures. A student loan, which by its nature means that the government is abdicating its responsibility towards the funding of public education, it's not going to resolve any of this problem. That is even before we begin to go into the nitty-gritty of what this student loan itself is all about. And I'd like to make a point before I go further, which is that what we are seeing right now, before our very eyes, is the fact that this government wants to force this agenda on all of us, regardless of the multiple voices that have been raised against it over the past few months. And one of those voices is that of my organization, the Education Right Campaign. The meeting that was held last week, which was a legislative summit, by the House of Reps Ad Hoc Committee on Education, the resounding conclusion from that meeting, actually from the point made by numerous stakeholders, was that the student loan, especially as it's presently constituted, is a sham, and it has to be repealed. In fact, the major proposal at that summit was that it's better it's turned into a grant that can help to support the living cost that students face on campuses, and the government should put everything into raising the budgetary allocation to public education. Because this is where the question comes in. If government wants to raise the revenue, the percentage of revenue that will go to student loan from 1% to 3%, and this is a government that has not been able to achieve even, let's say, 15% funding to education, you then begin to ask yourself that where does the priority lies? What these people wants to do really is to say that they've got no responsibility to fund education, even though they are in custody of the entire wealth of this country. But we're not going to put money into that foundational thing that helps all of us to grow, that gives us a level playing ground to reach our goals. If you are going to have education, then it's either you find money to pay for it, or you collect a loan that you don't have any idea of how to pay it back, and we are not going to accept it.
All right, you've really made some very salient submission, and I'm going to take you on those issues. You talked about the fact that this student loan is a scam, and you would have suggested in your submission that they go for grants, right? Understanding the fact that even at the level of grants, there are sometimes some grants can come with low interest rate, if not totally free, right? Now you made mention of the fact that it's not doable, given the fact that even the UNICEF expectation when it comes to funding of education, some school of thought will say it's 26%. Some might give it just as you said. But then, how much so far has Nigeria been able to, successfully fund the educational sector? It's really abysmal, which also brings to the fact that you cannot build on nothing.
Yeah.
Now, tell me, with the unemployment rate, as at 2022, it was 37%. Now, KPMG is projecting it might likely go to 41%. Yeah. That's the unemployment rate. What is the possibility if you tell me grants as against loan, which of course, like I said, there are certain percentage increase or interest rate that comes with grant, even as small as it might be. What is the likelihood that a student who is accepting this grant might likely pay if after schooling comes out and doesn't secure a job?
Well, when we say grant, what we mean is support to the living cost of student.
How do you mean?
That will not be paid back.
Be very specific. How do you mean?
We have had scholarships. We still have scholarships up to now. That is a kind of financial provision we are asking the government to transform the student loan to. And what it means is that it will go into supporting indigent students. There are ways of finding out who are the most needy students, on different campuses. The governing councils and the vice chancellors of the different institutions can work this out.
The same way palliatives are being measured out when it comes to indigent that we cannot see.
I'm going there. But to ensure that this does not lead to corruption, the process of giving out this grant has to be put under, the monitoring of a committee made up of representative of students, elected representative of students, staff, and university management. That would ensure that those who are actually needy of this are the ones that get it. But also, it ensures that every kobo is accounted for. That is what so it's not something that will be paid back.
Pause for a while. Pause for a while.
Yeah.
You talk about scholarship.
Yeah.
There are some certain, what's the word to use? Some certain modalities that you need to meet when it comes to scholarship.
Yeah.
What about those who might not be academically gifted to be able to attain that threshold to benefit from scholarship, but still want to go to school? Are you saying they're out of it?
What?
Because when you call scholarship, there are some certain benchmark you should meet for you to be able to enjoy the scholarship benefits.
That's why we called it a grant. There is an existing scholarship that the federal government gives and some state government also gives on campuses. Not everybody gets it. People apply for it. There are criteria for getting it. What we are asking for is grant to support the living cost that students face, and it goes to the indigent students. So it means that the basic criteria to qualify for that will be for your inability to survive as a student to be ascertained. That means that the income of your parent, whether you are a student who sponsor yourself, all of this will be worked out through that's why the student union representative have to be involved, because students know themselves. So regardless of whether you are academically sound, you are a top level student or not, that is not what matters here. Because when you look at the scholarships that exist, like you have tried to say, it doesn't go to all students, it goes to only high-flying students. But this grant is to support those who are actually indigent.